to come here.
James, thank you very much indeed for that. James Clayton there in Las Vegas. Well, Mr. Trump has not spoken in front of the cameras in Washington since around 2:30 in the morning, but he's been on Twitter. He tweeted, "Our lawyers have asked for meaningful access," he says, "but what good does that do? The damage has already been done," he says, "to the integrity of our system and to the presidential election itself. This," he says, "is what should be discussed." In a few tweets earlier, he said, "We have claimed for electoral vote purposes Pennsylvania, which won't allow legal observers, the state of Georgia and the state of North Carolina, each one of which," he says, "has a big Trump lead. Additionally, we hereby claim," it's not plain what he means by that, "the state of Michigan, if in fact there was a large number of secretly dumped ballots, as has been widely reported." There is, of course, no evidence for that at the moment. But that tweet, like several others in a similar vein, has been tagged with a warning by Twitter, saying some of the information is disputed and might be misleading. Well, Professor Josh Kastenberg is a professor at the University of New Mexico Law School. Before that, I know you had a 20-year career as a lawyer and judge in the U.S. Air Force. Thank you very much indeed for your time. Tell us something about these challenges. On some of them, the Supreme Court has already ruled, hasn't it?
That's correct. So the Constitution of the United States gives to the states the authority to set the time, place, and manner of how to vote and how votes are counted. And so it often strikes our friends around the world as odd that Pennsylvania might have a different way of counting votes than Nevada does or that Georgia does. The Trump administration sought, and the Republicans sought, to shape the election prior to the vote. And so they raised lawsuits in Pennsylvania and North Carolina, and the Democrats won their position in both already by the Supreme Court not intervening and overturning the lower state Supreme Court's favorable rulings. On the other hand, the U.S. Supreme Court issued rulings on Wisconsin that were favorable to President Trump prior to the election. But now President Trump is filing new appeals on Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Georgia, and possibly Nevada.
And we have some pictures coming in here of live counting in Georgia, but in some of these states it was Republican-controlled legislatures that decreed that ballots should not be counted until Election Day or just before, wasn't it? What are the chances of some of these challenges proceeding or succeeding?
Well, you can never fully predict what will happen to a lawsuit, but I give the chances of succeeding very low for this reason. In the year 2000, the United States Supreme Court ruled a case that we're now familiar with called Bush versus Gore. And we may remember terms like hanging Chad, sideways Chad, upside down Chad. But essentially what that decision stood for is the proposition that when a state legislature creates a law and that the state election counting follows that law, the federal courts cannot intervene unless the counting of ballots is discriminatory against people on the basis of race or youth or age or gender. And that's our 15th, 19th, and 26th Amendment. What Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, and Michigan have done is followed their own state law. And in point of fact, it appears, listening to the Attorney General of Michigan's argument, that they did give meaningful opportunity to the Republicans to watch the voting and the counting. That's called poll watching, and that Republicans did take advantage of the ability to do so. And so I think that while you can always have the chance of maintaining a favorable ruling at the lower courts, if the United States Supreme Court is to hold true to Bush versus Gore, then it's very unlikely that President Trump will prevail at the highest court in the United States.
Professor Kastenberg, very interesting to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you.